Hey guys, it's Bromos and welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, we'll be going over the fundamentals of support and resistance and how we can apply them. Understanding the theory behind support and resistance will improve your trade to a whole new level. By the end of this video, you will understand what support and resistance are, how to identify them, and how we can use them to find entries and exit points. Let's get started. First, let's talk about support. Support is the price level that the stock has declined to many times in the past, but is usually unable to go any further, indicating that the demand is strong there. The theory behind support is that as the price goes down, buyers are becoming more interested in buying because they are getting a deal at a cheaper price, while the sellers are starting to die off. In other words, there is an expectation that the demand will overcome the supply and drive the price right back up. So if a stock is at a downtrend and it starts to suddenly move upwards, then this indicates that it faced a level of support that it couldn't break. Resistance is a price level that the stock has risen to many times in the past, but is usually unable to go any further, indicating that the demand for the stock is dying out. The theory behind resistance is that as the price gets more expensive, buyers are becoming less interested in it and supply starts to increase, since nobody wants to buy. The expectation is that the supply will overcome the demand and drive the price right back down. So if a stock that is at an uptrend suddenly starts moving downwards, then it means that it faced a level of resistance that it couldn't break. As you probably already guessed, support and resistance are very similar in terms that they act as price barriers. They can be applied on any time frame, whether it's the intraday, daily, weekly, or monthly chart. The only difference is where they happen. Let's do an example together. Here we have a stock that's been moving up and down for a while now. So when looking for either support or resistance levels, we want to find areas that have been tested a lot. In other words, areas that have caused the price to move in the opposite direction. So in this case, support would have been here because we could see it being tested several times. This area over here would be resistance because it has been tested many times. So in theory, you could have bought over each time at support and sold at resistance if you played your cards right. There will be times where you buy at support and it still keeps going lower. That is when you would sell in order to minimize the damage. In this case, at one point, it did go below support and came right back up, but it was also possible for it to not go back up and just keep going down. That is why I cannot stress it enough that it's important to stick to your trading plan and following your stop losses. There will also be times where you sell at resistance from your low entry point and it keeps going higher. This is a good type of problem to have because in the end, you still made money on it even though you're missing out on more profits. Again, in this example, although it broke through resistance and came back down, it could have still gone upwards. It didn't need to come back down, but in this example, it did, and it would just keep flying. Some of you guys might be wondering, should we be drawing support or resistance on the open close of the candlesticks, or on top or bottom of the wicks of the candlesticks? In my opinion, it would be stronger if you drew them on the wicks, but you can still draw them on the open/close of the candlesticks. Let's look at another example of support and resistance. Here we have another setup where the stock has been moving consistently up for a while now. It's not going to be like in the last example where we drew horizontal lines. Instead, we will be trying to draw diagonal lines. So the way to find support here is to find a pattern where a certain area has been hit a lot. In this case, this area would have been considered support because of the number of times it's been tested. Notice how it sits nicely on this trend line. Over here would be a level of resistance because on the many times it's been tested. Once again, you could have started an entry at support and then sold at resistance. Notice how this setup gives off a staircase-like appearance. It keeps going up like you're going up the stairs. So if you guys understood even a tiny bit about support and resistance in terms of what I've spoken so far, then you guys are already ahead of the game. Remember when I mentioned that support and resistance sometimes don't always hold? When that happens, support becomes the new resistance, and resistance becomes the new support. The idea behind this is that the supply and demand has shifted. That is why you will see a lot of people trying to go long or short on breakouts, because typically they tend to stay in the direction that they went through, mainly as long as the volume was strong. This will make more sense once we go through some examples together. So here we have a stock that's been trading in a range for around 2 years, and is currently testing around this area of resistance. Now the question is, can we break out of here? Let's find out. It breaks out and continues to move higher. The most important thing to note that as soon as we broke out and held above that resistance, that previous resistance became the new support. The other support at the bottom of the chart doesn't change its role, but it's not something that we need to concern ourselves with while we're so far away from it and don't plan on holding that long. It starts consolidating at the top, but notice how we have a new resistance up there that it's trying to break. It never got the chance to and gapped down to our support area, which it couldn't hold. As a result, it once again, the previous support is now the resistance. The stock continues to move lower while almost touching our support area. That's why you'll see people only buying at support and not at resistance unless they're shorts trying to drive the price down. Again, if you buy at support and it breaks below, just stop out and take a small loss as opposed to hoping for the best and losing even more money. Also, don't be surprised if your support keeps changing its role and vice versa with resistance, because as we have witnessed earlier, it's a common theme for this to happen when the volume is just right. Let's take a look at another example. Here we have Intel moving upwards for quite some time now, as shown on the green chart pattern. Although not as clean as the other examples, we can see that it's bouncing off support and resistance. Eventually, it couldn't hold support and broke below it. Now that previous support is the new resistance. The stock continues to go lower in a range. Even though the setup looks a bit choppy, you could have still bought it at support and sold at resistance each time. Eventually, it breaks out of that downward range and starts going upwards. Now that previous resistance that it had trouble breaking out of before is the new support area. Also note that I include an orange line that illustrates that this also counts as an area of support, since it has touched it many times in the past and reversed from there. As I mentioned earlier, it's moving at an uptrend, and once again, you could have bought each time at support and sold at resistance. It's not always going to be that easy, and there will be times where the setup is tricky, but in a future video, we will deal with situations like that. For now, I just want to drill the idea of buying at support and selling at resistance. Then it starts moving within a new range. Notice how it will have trouble breaking over resistance because of the chart pattern that we were first looking at the slide, like around 3 or 4, 5 slides ago. More than likely, I would buy at around $55 and sell it at around $60 if I was going for a quick swing trade. That basically sums up support and resistance. If there is one thing you could take from this video, then it would be to buy at support and sell at resistance. Some of you guys might be thinking, don't those setups look like certain patterns? Yes, they do. And we will be covering those specific patterns in future videos. But as of right now, I just want you guys to understand that the concept of support and resistance, because those play a major role in finding chart patterns and knowing when to buy off them. If you guys enjoyed the video, then hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more concepts like this. As always, feel free to leave any comments below if you have any questions or just need more clarity on something. I'll try to have the next video up by the end of the month. Anyways, have a great day, friends!